Welcome to this explainer. Let's jump right into a fascinating and, honestly, absolutely critical challenge in biomanufacturing. Today, we're taking on the high-stakes obstacle course of viral vector downstream processing and fill finish. If you've ever wondered how we take this incredibly complex raw biological soup and refine it down into a pure, highly potent, and perfectly sterile medical treatment, well, you're in exactly the right place. Let's get into it. So, let's start with our central dilemma. This is the core problem that engineers and scientists are literally obsessing over every single day. The intense battle between stripping away dangerous impurities and protecting our incredibly fragile, infectious payload. It's a really delicate dance, and it constantly begs the question, why is this such an unavoidable trade-off? You can think of it like a giant balance scale. On one side, you have aggressive purification. We absolutely have to remove all the unwanted cellular debris and proteins, right? That vastly improves purity. But here's the catch. Every harsh chemical or physical step we take to clear those impurities stresses out the vector. That threatens its commercial yield, and worse, its ability to actually infect target cells and do its job. Now, on the flip side, if we prioritize vector protection to keep that infectivity and yield super high, we run a very real risk of impurity carryover. And because each purification step usually recovers less than 100% of the vector, well, that cumulative yield drop across multiple steps can seriously tank our overall output. Process development is pretty much an endless quest to find that perfect, viable middle ground. To break this all down, we're going to cover the balancing act, filtration and clarification, chromatography and concentration, formulation needs, aseptic processing, and finally, site transfer. Section 1. The balancing act, defining the threat. Okay, before we can even think about purifying anything, we have to know exactly what we're finding to remove from the bioreactor harvest. We've got to clear out all of these biological and process impurities. We're talking about host cell proteins and host cell DNA, of course, but pay special attention to residual plasmid DNA. This is a tricky process impurity that requires its own dedicated clearance steps, completely separate from the vector's actual genome. Toss in leftover media components and process reagents, and you've got yourself a seriously messy starting fluid. Our job, strip all of this away without destroying our vector. Section 2, filtration and clarification. The obstacle course begins. Let's look at the very first physical gauntlets our vector has to survive. This sequence right here represents the core purification train. Think of it as a highly coordinated series of steps that slowly refines our product. First, we clarify out the bulky debris. Then we hit chromatography for molecular separation, followed by ultrafiltration and diafiltration to concentrate and prep everything. And finally, aseptic fill finish. Every single step is vital, but let's zoom in on that first major hurdle. Clarification. So the big takeaway here is that we start macro. We use depth filtration to grab the larger cellular debris and then follow up with membrane filtration to handle the finer particles. But you definitely can't just pick any standard filter off the shelf. Filter selection heavily depends on our specific vector's size and fragility, plus the expected impurity load. We have to carefully pick filters that won't accidentally trap or shear our vector to pieces. Oh, and usually this filtration is paired right alongside our next step, chromatography, instead of acting totally alone. Section 3, chromatography and concentration, molecular sorting. Now we're zooming way into the molecular level. This is where the really precise separation happens by stacking different chemistry techniques. First up, affinity chromatography. This exploits specific binding to get a highly selective capture of our vector. Next is ion exchange chromatography, which separates the remaining species based on tiny differences in surface charge. And this step is absolutely crucial for separating our highly potent full viral capsids from the useless empty ones. Finally, size exclusion chromatography separates things by size and shape, which acts as a polishing step to pull out any aggregates. Stacking these complementary modes creates a gauntlet that impurities just can't survive. Once we've chemically sorted our vector and typically treated it with nucleases to chew up any lingering, unassociated nucleic acids, we are left with a very pure but very diluted liquid. We need to fix that. So after chromatography, we bring in ultrafiltration to drastically shrink the liquid's volume ahead of formulation. We do this simply by forcing water and small molecules across a specialized membrane, which leaves our now highly concentrated vector behind. Paired immediately with that, and honestly often done in the exact same operation, is diafiltration. This is a game changer of a step. It swaps out those harsh process liquids for a nice, stabilizing formulation buffer. It maintains our high vector concentration while completely changing the chemical environment the vector is floating around in. And naturally, both of these filtration steps have to be rigorously validated so we know for sure they aren't compromising the vector's integrity or potency. Section 4. Formulation needs. Equipping the armor. All right, so once it's purified and concentrated, our super fragile cargo needs some chemical armor if it's going to survive storage and transport. We have to design a formulation that targets specific vector vulnerabilities. You see, vectors, especially the enveloped ones, are incredibly sensitive to shear and temperature. They also have this really frustrating habit of adsorbing or sticking to surfaces and clumping together into aggregates, which basically kills their recovered potency. So we add stabilizing excipients. And to be clear, these aren't just random recipes. They're precise selections based on strict biochemical principles designed to stop sticking and clumping, keeping the vector stable and potent. Section 5. Aseptic processing. Entering the vault. Now we hit a genuinely fascinating hurdle. Traditionally in pharma, you just pass your final liquid through a sterilizing grade filter right before it goes into the vial. Easy, right? Well, actually scratch that. Because some viral vectors are so large and fragile, we simply can't rely on a final sterile filter to catch bacteria. Why? Because the filter might actually trap or destroy our product. So if we can't filter out bacteria at the very end, what on earth do we do? Because of that exact limitation, the entire industry is shifting toward massive, holistic contamination control strategies. We rely heavily on closed processing to limit any open exposure to the room environment. We're also going all in on single-use disposable systems. That's a huge deal in multi-product facilities because using a system once and tossing it drastically cuts down the risk of cross-contamination between different batches. You combine that with strict bioburden control upstream and intense environmental monitoring, and the goal is to ensure no microbes ever enter the process to begin with. We bypass the sterile filtration problem by providing the contamination in the first place. So, our product is safely sealed in the vial. Awesome. But before we ship these vials to hospitals, we usually need to freeze them. Did you know, though, that enveloped vectors, like lentivirus or retrovirus, are significantly more vulnerable to freeze-thaw stress than non-enveloped vectors like AAV? It's true. The physical formation of ice crystals and those sharp temperature shifts can literally tear enveloped vectors apart. That is exactly why extensive freeze-thaw and handling studies aren't just nice to have. They are absolutely mandatory to figure out our storage, shipping, and in-use instructions. Section 6. Site transfer. Scaling the operation. Let's look at a quick educational case study. Imagine a fictional company, Vectra Biomanufacturing. Vectra needs to qualify a second fill-finish site to handle growing demand. Now, they can't just turn the lights on, bring in the machines, and start filling vials. No way. Moving to a second site requires absolute mountains of data to prove the new facility perfectly mimics the delicate balance they've already established. They have to prove aseptic process and product quality comparability. They must prove container closure integrity, meaning the vial stays a microbial barrier across its entire shelf life and shipping journey, not just on day one. Plus, they need equivalent environmental monitoring data and identical stability during freeze-thaw. It's a massive undertaking. So, to recap everything we've covered today, every single step in downstream processing is a meticulously validated compromise. From that initial depth filtration and chromatography, all the way through to ultrafiltration and aseptic filling using single-use closed systems. We are constantly, always balancing impurity removal against yield, purity, and infectivity. And then, our formulation and container closure choices are what actually keep that hard-won product stable until it's safely administered to the patient. I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Right now, as we've seen, downstream processing is completely defined by that constant tug-of-war between purity and yield. But as our therapies get larger, more potent, and vastly more complex, how is the biomanufacturing world going to innovate so we never have to sacrifice yield for purity again? What kind of new, gentler purification technologies are on the horizon to protect these incredibly fragile cures? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring the incredible science of biomanufacturing.